Hey Art, how you doing?
Good. How are you?
Good. I didn't expect to be talking about an unboxing when it comes to the Fed rate cut, but I think it definitely deserves that kind of a headline. Well done.
Yeah, yeah. No, I think so for sure. Because again, it was a very surprising week, very anticipated, and then what they ended up doing, I think, got a little bit of everybody's attention since it was stronger than expected.
Well, I remember back in the day, and you probably remember this because we're fairly close to the same ages. There was that old saying that says, "When E.F. Hutton talks, people listen." And I think it's the same thing with Chairman Powell. That when he's going to say something, people just kind of put the brakes on and stop. And as I told you, I said, it's very rare that I ever actually stop and listen to a news conference from the chairman of the Federal Reserve, and yet I couldn't turn it off because I'm like, this is crazy. What's going on? And the fact that they cut it a half a percentage point was a nice surprise. Well, I don't know if it's a nicer. I think it gave this. You tell me. Did it give the markets a mixed signal?
Well, I think a little bit. And by the way, as to your point about Chairman Powell, you're right about that. In fact, that's what's always a little bit. You got to be kind of careful and watch this process because they do these 2-day meetings, Tuesday, Wednesday. Then after the meeting concludes, that's when they announce the decision on the rate. And of course, this week it was dropped by 0.5%, not the quarter that was predominantly expected. But then part two to that is then after the announcement, Powell holds a press conference where he gets riddled with questions, and the press is going to try to get him to kind of expand on what was behind the decision, what reasons were taken into account to go that far or not, and so forth and so on. And so sometimes what you can see is an initial market reaction when the decision has been announced, and then more market reaction, which can go either way once Chairman Powell starts talking, because they really focus on that very intently, and they start parsing his words and, okay, what does he really mean here? And it's amazing how the markets can read into some of his comments, and then you see a reaction either in the stock market or the bond market as a result. So it's really kind of a fascinating process.
Yeah, I kind of thought I would see because I was kind of flipping back and forth to say, okay, after he's talking, what's happening to the stock market?
Right.
And I was surprised to see it losing some ground as it did. I thought, the investors say, okay, this is a good thing because it really potentially frees up some money for these people who have been waiting for those loans on projects and things of that nature and mergers to now take action. And right. I was surprised it lost some ground. Now I think today it's back on positive ground, but that was interesting.
Yeah, for sure.
So the other thing I want to ask you is Fed Chairman Powell said, we don't think we're behind in this rate cut. What do you think he meant by that?
Well, part of what's been in the news lately, last week or two, as we anticipated this meeting and the decision, was a fair amount of criticism that the Fed's been late, that this process of starting to lower the Fed funds rate should have happened earlier, like basically in July. We've had some politicians, some senators have been really critical that the Fed's behind the curve and they should have cut rates a lot earlier. So he was, in his remarks, in his press conference, he pushed back on that and basically said, no, we're not behind. That's not why we did this. But he also went on to say, well, we're not behind, but in part we're doing this so that we don't get behind. So that's the kind of subtlety in language that the market can really focus on. To try to, figure out what do they really mean and where do we go from here. I think, when the announcement was made, you're right, the stock market kind of sold off a little bit. And I think the initial reaction is, oh my gosh, maybe things are worse than we thought because the Fed went 0.5% instead of a quarter. So maybe the economy is tanking. And so I think that was the initial reaction that you saw with the stock market. And of course, it recovered today because it's really not that simple. It's not that clear that the economy is falling apart and things are going to start to go into a real dive. I don't see that. Maybe it's softening up a little bit, but I don't think we have anything severe going on in terms of the economy, at least not